After the plane crash, he regains consciousness alone in the middle of a scorching desert, surrounded only by wreckage, the blazing sun, and the complete absence of water or food. Across the vast expanse of the endless savanna, large predators live and hunt. Not far from their habitat lies a small settlement. Inside one of the tents, a doctor is trying to save a local resident, but he fails. At that moment, a young man bursts into the tent and says they need to leave immediately. Boko is approaching, which means it is no longer safe to remain in the settlement. Getting into a car, the man sets off to find his wife. At the same time, she is outdoors, praying with the children. When he reaches her, he tells her they must leave urgently. Boko Haram has learned about them. They need hostages, and apparently someone from the village informed the terrorists. The man insists they leave at once. He has heard that a plane is flying in, and they might still be able to catch it. Frightened, the woman agrees but asks for time to take the children back to the village. On the way to the plane, they drive together and listen to the news about Boko Haram, an Islamist terrorist organization that attacks anyone who does not support Sharia law. In recent days, the terrorists have assaulted convoys made up of military units and a civilian joint task force. As the newsreader's voice plays in the background, the woman asks whether they will ever return to Africa. The man reacts angrily. Today he failed to save a boy because he did not have an arterial clamp. It had been stolen, along with scalpels and forceps. There have been no medical supply deliveries, and the Bibles and books she sent were lost to customs. Nothing worked out for them in Africa. They were unable to help anyone the way they had hoped, and he sees no reason to come back. After listening to her husband, Sue reminds him that they met many good people there, and that is what truly matters. Meanwhile, at the airstrip, several people are already waiting to board. One of the men is talking on the phone, telling the person on the other end that he really did not like Africa. At that moment, a man enters the tent and announces that the plane has arrived. Looking at him, the passenger demands that he carry his bags, but the man refuses. He is a guide, not a porter. After stepping out of the cockpit, the pilot goes to obtain clearance for takeoff. After paying a bribe, he easily gets the necessary stamps and returns to the plane. Some time later, the couple arrives at the departure point. Finding the pilot, Andrew asks him to give them seats on the plane. Casting a contemptuous glance at him, the pilot demands 10,000 rand per person. If that is too expensive, they can wait for the next plane. It will arrive in a week. Outraged that they were promised a different price, the man still agrees, only to learn that for such a high cost they will be taken without any luggage. A little later, the other passengers also find out that they will have to fly without their bags. There is no space for them on the plane. Looking at the pilot, Andrew asks whether he was not supposed to bring medical supplies, but the pilot merely sneers and says the medicine will arrive on the next flight. Leaving all their belongings behind, the passengers board the plane. Some time after takeoff, the plane hits turbulence. People begin to panic, and one of the passengers realizes the aircraft is overloaded. He approaches the pilot and warns him, but the pilot assures him everything is fine. He is an experienced pilot and has everything under control. However, the shaking grows worse, and at one point the plane plunges downward like a stone. The pilot desperately tries to regain control and level the aircraft, but all his efforts are in vain. When Andrew comes to, he sees that they have crashed. Jumping to his feet, the doctor rushes to search for the other passengers. He finds the body of Chrissy lying on the ground, along with two men who are still alive. Finally, he finds Sue. She is trapped between the seats and the wreckage of the plane. Calling for help, he tries to pull her free, but she screams in agony. The pilot, who rushes over to help, shows him that her leg is pinned by twisted metal. Some time later, the man buries the body of his fallen beloved, Chrissy, while Andrew frees his wife's leg and treats her wound. While the others are busy, one of the men decides to find out why the plane was barely able to stay airborne, but the pilot refuses to explain anything. After surveying the surroundings and determining the direction they were flying, the pilot and the guide realize they have ended up in a truly dangerous place. At that moment, lions are moving through the savannah. Drawing in the air with their noses, they sense the smell of fresh blood somewhere nearby. Meanwhile, the men approach Andrew. They tell him that about a day's walk to the east there is a village. They have water, so reaching it should not be a problem. That is the good news. The bad news is that they are in the Nala Reserve, a safari reserve home to leopards, hyenas, and lions. Most of these predators hunt at night, when it is much cooler, so they need to leave immediately. Sue is seriously injured and will not be able to walk on her own, which means Andrew would have to carry her. The pilot announces that everyone has 5 minutes to prepare before they set out. As soon as the men disperse, Sue says she is in no condition to go anywhere. Despite the danger, she will stay there. Her faith in God will protect her from wild animals. Unwilling to abandon his wife, Andrew decides to stay with her. He asks the pilot to send help once they reach the village. The pilot tries to explain that this is suicide. They will be torn apart by lions, but Andrew ignores him. Tabo then tries to reason with the couple as well, but they stand firm in their decision. Before leaving, the guide notices the pilot has a gun and asks him to leave it with Andrew, but the pilot refuses. He is not willing to give up his own protection because of their foolishness. Before departing, Tabo approaches the couple once more, but Andrew does not let him say a word. The pilot said the savannah is safe during the day, and by nightfall they will send help. With a heavy sigh, the man says goodbye to the woman and her husband and leaves with the others. Some time later, one of the men stops for a rest, while his companion begins to panic. He thinks they are heading the wrong way. He knows of a village to the west, and believes they should go there instead. The pilot tells him to calm down. He is probably experiencing hallucinations and imagining things. He urges everyone not to waste time and to keep moving. Meanwhile, Andrew stays close to his wife. When she falls asleep, he gets up to stretch a little and looks up at the sky. There, he notices a circling flock of vultures. At the same time, the other men, nearly exhausted, continue pushing their way through the desert. A little later, Andrew decides to check what supplies might still be left in the wrecked plane. As he searches through it, he suddenly discovers a bundled package. When he unwraps it, the man is left in shock. The group of passengers continues their journey together with the pilot. At one point, one of the travelers collapses onto the sand, completely exhausted, and begs for water. The pilot looks at him, hands him his canteen, and says that they are almost at the village. About halfway there, they should reach a river, where they'll be able to drink their fill and replenish their supplies. Returning to his wife, Andrew helps her make herself more comfortable. Her leg is in terrible pain, and there is nothing he can do to help. Trying to distract her, he starts talking about their future. When they get back home, it would be wonderful to adopt a child. The woman reacts with joy to the idea. Then she begins to say a prayer, asking God not to abandon them and to give them strength. After walking a bit farther, the pilot reaches the place where he believed the village would be. To his horror and disappointment, there is nothing there. He tells the others that they must have taken a wrong turn and that they need to go back. One of the men completely loses control. In a panic, he snatches the pilot's gun and points it at him. Max accuses the pilot of being responsible for Chrissy's death and says that now he's going to kill the rest of them too. He claims he knows where they need to go and demands that everyone follow him. The pilot refuses. He tells the others they can choose for themselves whom to follow, then turns and heads back toward the plane. Tabo and another man go with him, while Max takes off in the opposite direction. At the same time, wild animals roam the savannah: hyenas, venomous snakes, vultures, and other dangerous predators. Sue's wound keeps getting worse. Drawn by the smell of her blood, a lion approaches the wreckage of the plane. Hearing a strange rustling sound, Andrew jumps to his feet and looks around. Deciding it was probably nothing, he still picks up a piece of metal just in case, then sits back down. Some time later, the pilot and the passengers return to the plane. What they see is horrifying. Judging by the bloodstains and claw marks on the fuselage, lions have eaten the woman. As the pilot steps closer, he cautiously scans the area, looking for Andrew. The next second, Andrew lunges out from the side and attacks him, screaming that he killed his wife. Tabo tries to pull them apart, begging Andrew not to kill the pilot, but blinded by rage and grief, he hears nothing. Grabbing a flare gun, the guide fires it. The loud blast snaps Andrew back to his senses, and he releases his victim. Instead of thanking him, the pilot says that they now have no signal flares left. Sitting on the ground and tying together a cross from sticks, Andrew tells Tabo what happened. One lion attacked them, and he tried with all his strength to save Sue, but he couldn't. The guide feels deeply sorry for him and tries to comfort him, saying that there is no escaping a lion. A little later, the pilot approaches Tabo to discuss what they should do next. The lions will return at night, and if they don't take action, they will all die. He suggests locking themselves inside the cockpit for the night, but there is a problem. The cockpit is designed for 2 people. If they squeeze in tightly, 3 might fit, but there are 4 of them. One person will have to stay outside. Tabo hates this idea, but he has no alternative to offer. After that conversation, the guide and the pilot walk over to Andrew. Before they can say anything, he accuses the pilot of transporting contraband, rhino horns. Instead of delivering medical supplies, as he was supposed to, he was lining his own pockets. Because of him, a 6-year-old boy died, and Sue died too, and the plane's engine exploded due to the overload from the illegal cargo. The pilot tries to shift the blame, insisting that the cargo had nothing to do with the crash and that the woman died because of Andrew. He had warned them it was dangerous to stay where they were, but they refused to listen. After gathering together, the men flip a coin to decide which of the 4 of them will have to stay outside. The unluckiest one turns out to be the young man. He immediately offers Tabo $1 million if he will take his place outside instead. Laughing right in his face, Tabo refuses. Unable to believe that money can't save him, the man grows angry. He tries to talk to Andrew about it, but Andrew also refuses to give up his spot. Instead, he holds out a small church cross to him. Looking at it, the man rejects the gift and says he doesn't believe in those fairy tales. When night falls, all the predators of the savannah come out to hunt, and 3 of the men climb into the cockpit. Before that, the pilot helps the man start a fire. If he keeps it burning all night, the animals won't attack him. Not really believing it will save him, the man sits down by the fire. At the same time, Max is wandering through the savannah. Suddenly, he hears the sounds of predators all around him. Panicking, he starts rushing back and forth, desperately trying to see something in the darkness. Some time later, the men are jolted awake by loud gunshots. They realize it's Max, shooting at the predators. They hear his ammunition run out. They don't know what has happened to him, but they hope he managed to scare the animals away. Frightened, the man throws more wood onto the fire so it won't go out and then sits down beside it again. After a while, the pilot wakes up in the cockpit and decides to step outside to relieve himself. Once outside, he sees that the fire is almost out and the man is asleep. He immediately wakes him and reminds him that he has to keep the fire going. After that, the pilot returns to the shelter, not noticing that a snake has crawled into the cockpit along with him. A little later, the men wake up to terrifying sounds. The man has fallen asleep again, the fire has gone out, and lions have come to their camp. Screaming in terror and pain, he begs them to help him, but the pilot forbids the others from going outside. They can't help him now, doing so would only get them killed as well. Gradually, the man's voice falls silent, and the predators decide to go after the rest of them. They try to force the door open and tear through the cockpit skin with their claws, but the men manage to hold the doors shut. Suddenly, Andrew notices the snake. At that moment, it bites Tabo on the leg, knocking the snake away and crushing it underfoot. The doctor grabs a knife and cuts the wound open to squeeze out the venom. While they tend to the guide's injury, the lions leave the crash site. In the morning, Andrew is the first to climb out of the cockpit and inspect their camp. To his horror, he sees blood and the remains of the man scattered around. The others wake up next. Tabo is in very bad shape. He can't stand on his leg and can't feel it at all. The pilot asks Andrew to help carry the guide outside, but Andrew ignores him and walks away. Seeing that waiting for help is pointless, the pilot tells Tabo to lean on him and promises to make him a crutch. Then he goes to Andrew and explains that they need to start moving before the heat sets in. But Andrew sinks completely into despair. He says he never knew how to fight the way his wife did. So he's giving up and will sit under a tree. Maybe the Lord will save him, and if not, then that is his fate. Not sharing the man's philosophy, the pilot returns to Tabo and brings him a stick. Before leaving, he makes one last attempt to talk to Andrew, but Andrew stands his ground and says he's staying. Telling the doctor that he's lost his mind, the pilot and Tabo walk away. They don't get very far when they notice a vehicle approaching. They rejoice, thinking it will save them, but their joy is short-lived. To their disappointment, it turns out to be armed men from a local tribe. They detain the travelers and beat them, demanding a clear explanation for why they are on this land. Learning that the two white men are Americans who crashed in a plane, they accuse Tabo of being a lackey for the whites. Silencing the guide with a heavy blow, the men force the pilot to tell what happened. Then they inspect the crash site and find the rhino horns. They accuse them of theft, wanting to know who they were planning to sell the cargo to. One of the men points a gun at Andrew. The pilot almost immediately intervenes and confesses that he was the one transporting the horns. Seeing how tense the situation has become, Tabo begs the men not to kill them, saying they are not terrorists. He admits they are right in their anger, this is their land, and they have the right to take the cargo. But the men are tired of listening to the guide's pleas, and they simply kill him. This murder horrifies the pilot, forcing the men to sit on the ground with their hands raised. The locals talk among themselves. Before leaving, one of them orders that the captives be kept under the gun and shot if any of the white men try to escape. Left alone near the plane, the young man, mocking them, offers Andrew a deal. He'll give him a chance to run, count to 10, and then start shooting. But Andrew doesn't respond, simply sitting with his eyes closed. Then the young man makes the same offer to the pilot, who also refuses. Smiling, the local tells them that death is inevitable. Once their chief returns, the captives will be killed anyway. Continuing to taunt the white men, he approaches them with a canteen of water. Just as he sees their thirst, he laughs and spills the water on the ground. After a while, the pilot notices both guards have fallen asleep. Carefully rising, he quietly sneaks toward them. But one of the guards wakes up and sees him looming above. A fight breaks out. The noise wakes the second guard, who starts shooting at the pilot. Andrew lunges at him, and in the struggle, they manage to shoot the young man, then the second local as well. Horrified by what he's done, having killed a man, Andrew screams, remembering all the deaths from the past few days. Standing up, the pilot calms him, telling him there was no choice, either them or the others. They cannot stay here. The leader of these men will return. Approaching Andrew, he tries to convince him to leave. He takes responsibility for the deaths of Andrew's wife and the others and asks for a chance to save at least him. This way, he can begin to atone for his guilt. Carrying the wounded and exhausted Andrew, leaving a trail of blood across the savannah, the pilot presses forward. At one point, Andrew begs to be left behind, but the pilot refuses. Seeing cliffs ahead, the pilot explains that this was their original destination. Beyond the cliffs is a village where they can get help. Dragging Andrew up to the cliffs, the pilot notices lions have picked up their scent. They're still some distance away but moving on their trail. After a few tries, he manages to pull Andrew higher up, and they finally get a view of the village, a couple of kilometers away. Peeking from their hiding spot, they see the predators already close at the base of their cliff. Staying silent, he quietly urges Andrew not to make a sound. At that moment, the lions turn and leave, but suddenly the pilot notices a scorpion crawling up his back. He freezes, waiting for it to crawl onto Andrew, then knocks the creature away. Unfortunately, he accidentally hits a rock, which tumbles noisily down the cliff. The sound draws the lion's attention, revealing the location of their prey. Seeing the predators move toward them again, the pilot smears himself with Andrew's blood. Confessing to his friend that he cannot live with the weight of his guilt, so many have died because of him, he tells Andrew that the lions have found them, but he will distract them. Andrew must survive and fulfill his wife's dream. He must fight, just as she would have. With these words, the pilot stands tall, shouting, and charges at the lions, drawing them away from the wounded Andrew. Stunned that the pilot has chosen to sacrifice himself, Andrew peeks from behind the cliff and witnesses the terrifying scene. Gathering his strength under the scorching sun, Andrew rises and heads toward the village. At one point, exhaustion overcomes him, and he collapses. Regaining consciousness, he sees hyenas approaching. Standing tall, he realizes he is not ready to die at the hands of scavengers. Finding a stick on the ground, he picks it up, ready to fight for his life to the last. Summoning all his courage, he charges at the hyenas, who sense prey and rush toward him. At that moment, an incredible thing happens. Lightning strikes the ground between him and the pack, and rain begins to pour. Frightened, the hyenas flee, and Andrew collapses to the ground. Some time later, as the clouds clear, Andrew awakens and sees his wife, Sue, dressed in a light white gown. She approaches him and gently runs her hand through his hair. A smile of pure happiness spreads across his face. At that moment, villagers from the nearby settlement find the half-conscious Andrew, help him recover, and guide him safely to the village. What do you think? Could all the passengers have survived if they had made different choices? Or was it nothing short of a miracle that at least one of them lived through this catastrophe? Share your thoughts in the comments down below, give a thumbs up, and subscribe to the channel. See you in the next videos.